Hey guys, it's Julia and welcome back to my channel, and for today's video I'm going to be doing my November 2016 reading wrap-up, talking about all the books that I read in the month of November. Basically, November was an okay month, and if you saw last month's wrap-up you would know that I'm focusing less on the number of books I read and the big number at the end of the month, and instead on the quality of the books I read and what I get out of the books I read and if I'm enjoying the books that I'm reading. So let's just talk about this month. It was a pretty good month. It was full of novels and poetry, and yeah, I enjoyed a lot of the books I read, so let's jump right into it. First up here I have Traffic by Alan Hopkins. This book has trigger warnings for substance abuse, sex trafficking, and prostitution, so be aware of that before picking this book up. Basically, this is the second book to, I guess it's a duology, I believe it's a duology. The first book is called Tricks, and it deals with 5 teenagers, all of different genders and sexualities, and their lives and how they view sex and relationships and how they end up getting introduced to this industry and how they fall into the industry of prostitution. And then this book is just a continuation of those characters. If you heard me talk about Tricks at all, basically they're really tough books to read. They're really serious. I've never read anything like them. Alan Hopkins writes in verse, if you did not know, thought I'd mention that. So it's a really poetic way of writing it, but these books don't have like any comic relief. They're pretty much all dark, and even I love dark books so much, but this can be a lot for a lot of people. Me too, so I understand. I did prefer book 1 over book 2. I didn't feel like it added so much to the story. I felt like book 1 had more information and it was more of like a punch in the gut, while this one lacked a bit for me. But I would definitely still recommend picking up Tricks if you're like looking into more about sex trafficking and that whole industry and trying to understand, and you know what I mean. But they're really informative books and they are really tough to read, but they're worth reading. Maybe not Traffic though. I definitely say Tricks is a better book, but I ended up giving this one a 2.75 out of 5 stars. I have The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I follow Natasha and Daniel and their little romance for the day, and it is one of those, I wouldn't say love at first sight, but sort of. It does have an insta-love element to it, which was one of the reasons why I was iffy and didn't really know how to read it, because I usually really hate insta-love. I didn't mind this though. I thought their relationship was cute and it was just adorable read. I loved all the diversity, and Nicola Yoon's writing is so good. It's so good, guys. This book I did do a full-length review on, and I would suggest picking this book up. I did quite enjoy it, and I gave it a 3.75 out of 5 stars. Next up here I have I Wrote This For You by I.N.S. Thomas. This book is a poetry collection that has photography and poems in it, and they have to do with all sorts of things, mostly of love and loss and stuff like that. All that good stuff. Not good, but you know what I mean. I did quite enjoy this book. I read another book by him last month and I loved his other poetry collections so much. It touched me in so many ways, and these poetry collections are something that I definitely recommend starting with. This one was extra nice. I love the photography and I love just the short mini poems, and it was such a delight to read. I didn't enjoy all of these poems as much as I've enjoyed the other collection, like his other collection, and all those poems, like I loved like almost all of them. And this one I didn't love as many, but I still did quite enjoy it, and I gave it a 3.75 out of 5 stars. Next up I read Coke Machine Glow by Gordon Downey, and this book is another poetry collection, and this is written by the lead singer of the Tragically Hip, which I love. The Tragically Hip's music. I'm not like a hardcore fan, like I'm not in the fandom, I don't know everything about them, but I do quite enjoy their music. Like I do have it on my phone, I will listen to it, I'll put it on in the car, whatever. But this poetry collection I did not like, and it made me really sad, especially because of everything that Gordon Downey is going through and all that sort of stuff. Not that I should, you know, rate things differently depending on how the author is, but it's not doing good, so and everything that's happened with them has been really sad. But for his poetry collection, I liked 2 poems in the whole collection. One of those was on the back that I read like multiple times because it's like on the back of the book, and I just didn't like the writing in this. I thought it was jumpy, and just a lot of it was just really bizarre and not even in a good way. I really didn't enjoy this collection at all. I wouldn't suggest picking it up personally. I don't know if it was I didn't understand it, but there was like almost nothing I liked about it, which was really unfortunate. So I ended up giving it 2 stars. Up here I read Beautiful Chaos by Robert M. Drake, and this is another poetry collection that is full of poems and little pictures on the side as well. And I did quite enjoy this one. It wasn't my favorite, but it was okay. I ended up giving it 3.25 stars. I would have liked to enjoy more of these poems than I did. It didn't blow me away, but it was alright. So it was average. It was okay. 3.25. Next up here I have Shadow Kiss by Rochelle Mead. This is the 3rd book in the Vampire Academy series, and this series revolves around Rose Hathaway, and she's a vampire, and there's different types of vampires, and she has to protect her best friend because she's the last of her kind. Not like last vampire kind, but she's like the last family member. Do you know what I mean? I don't know the proper word right now. But yeah, so she has to protect her. Rose is really snarky and funny, and she's a really interesting main character to follow. She could be cocky at times, but she's snarky about it, and she's kind of great. So I really like Rose personally. But I did quite enjoy this book. It was kind of slow to start off. I'm not gonna lie, it dragged up points. For a bigger-ish kind of book, it did drag, but that ending though, and just Adrian, I love Adrian so much. Christian's such a dear. Lisa was so selfish in this book that it bothered me so much, but Dimitri and Rose, you can just feel their chemistry, and their romance is something I really enjoy. I ended up giving this 3.75 out of 5 stars. Up here I have I Wrote This For You and Only You by I.N.S. Thomas, and this book is another one of the poetry collection ones, just like the other one. And this one I didn't enjoy as much at all compared to the other one. I still gave it a decent rating, but the thing is some of the poems in this were repeats from the other collection, not the previous one I mentioned, but like another one of his collections that I've read. A lot of them were repeats. I didn't enjoy as many poems I would have liked to. The photography was beautiful though. It was beautiful. Like even the poems that weren't duplicates, some of them were just so repetitive with one another that it got really old really fast, and I didn't enjoy it as much, but I still ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, even though it's like more of like a 3.25 out of 5 stars. So yeah. But not least, I read How Hard Can Love Be by Holly Bourne. This is the 2nd book in the Spinster Club trilogy, and this book follows Amber, and it deals with more of a romance element. And it's the 2nd book. The 1st book was Am I Normal Yet, which was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. I'll have my review linked up on the screen. But we follow one of Evie's friends, Amber, and she has to go to her mother's summer camp with her stepdad, not the mom's stepdad, Amber's stepdad, and they own a camp and for kids, so they have to run this camp of kids, and then there's like teenagers her age there, and it's kind of about her dealing with that. And her mother's also an alcoholic, so it deals with why her mother left her, for one. You know, just the whole alcoholism topic, the topic of addiction, the topic of like a dysfunctional family. It was really interesting to read about, and I did quite enjoy it. I couldn't put this thing down, for one. I started it like on like the 28th at like 2 o'clock, and I like was reading it and I was so into it, but like at times I'd have to put it down. But then it came time for bed and I was like, I'm just gonna read like 100 pages. And then I stayed up till like midnight reading it, and I finished it in a day. And this was a buddy read actually with Kayla, and yeah, so she's the greatest. You should check her out. But this was a really enjoyable read for me. Again, I couldn't put it down. I love Holly Bourne's writing and her characters. They're so good. And if you're into contemporaries, I definitely recommend these books. My one issue with this one though is I did feel that like the other one intrigued me more because it was more about mental health rather than like the romance and the addiction element that was in this one, which the other one impacted me a lot more and that I enjoyed more. But this was still a solid second book that I did enjoy as well, don't get me wrong. I did feel the ending wrapped up like in a nice little pretty bow, and I was like, no. No. I don't know. But I ended up giving this a 3.75 out of 5 stars. I definitely recommend continuing with this series if you have read Am I Normal Yet. I really like these books. They're really good. Those are the books that I read in the month of November. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below and tell me what you read. I'd love to know what you thought of what I read, and let me know your thoughts on what you read and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I'll see you guys very soon with a new video. Bye!